Sarah Stevens Morley,
Here.
Jeff Solon.
Here.
Greg Rosenblatt.
Here.
Chris Daddy.
Here.
Megan Rockwell.
Here.
Chuck Neff.
Here.
Dennis Rio.
Dennis said he'll
I'll
probably
be
be
here.
late. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Sarah, any public comments or correspondence?
Yes, we did receive an email inviting us to, sorry everybody, I'm not super well and I'm a little bit disorganized, so I apologize. From Karen inviting us to have a booth at the Sustainability Fair, I apologize, on Saturday, October 7th.
Okay, thanks. And I actually see that we have that on the agenda at 8A. So when we get to that one, we'll see if we have enough volunteers for it. Okay, good. And then we have the meeting minutes from August 10. Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion, any changes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from August 10, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, submitted invoices, we got the email. Listing them, I don't know if you guys want to go, just describe what we're approving here. It looks like 3 for each of the 2 schools.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, in your package, you've got the cover sheet and then you've got the backup for the invoices, but I'll go through the invoices. So for the New Norton Elementary School, we have 3. Owner's rep, Arcadis, $4,433.35. O&G Industries, $10,324. And Tecton Architects, $75,608. Total for the Newton Norton School, $90,365.35.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on those 3 invoices? Not, motion to approve the invoices for the New Norton School?
Rich, last time I thought you wanted each one done separately.
Each
Yeah,
school
you know,
or
it's,
each individual one?
it's the committee's preference. We can do one at a time if you want.
Okay, if you want to do one at a time, then motion to approve $4,433.35 to Arcadis for owner representative services. Motion to, okay, Megan made the motion, second. Chuck, all in favor or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, approved to pay the invoice to Arcadis for the New Norton School. O&G, $10,324 for pre-construction services. The invoice dated 8/18. Motion to approve that invoice. Move it. Second. Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Get out of this.
Motion passes unanimously. Third one for the Norton Elementary School, Tecton Architects, Architectural Services, invoice dated 8/21, $75,608. Motion to approve the invoice. Second, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. And then the 3 for the north end.
Sure. Greg, I'll do one at a time.
Okay, great.
So,
That would
Yeah.
end redundancy. Yeah.
so for same 3 consultants, This is for the new North End Elementary School, so owners representative services, Arcadis, in the amount of $857.59.
Okay, motion to approve that. Megan, second. Second, Chuck. Any discussion?
Just a question, did we ever, 2 meetings ago, we discussed that you guys were gonna be putting together a list of all the questions that the group had, and things that were closed, things that were still open, and critical path items, these needed an answer by this date, or it's a problem, these need an answer by that date. Have we done that? We didn't have it last meeting, so.
Yeah, I thought that we had the list. I think Tecton brought that list and they had all the responses that were attached, that got circulated around as part of their package. I believe that's what we were doing, Chris.
Yeah, but that didn't have anything as critical dates or anything, that's, I guess we'll just talk about this after, but there were also other comments that were done, as far as the ed specs, the questions there. We talked about that, making sure you had those, and I don't recall seeing a list and any tracking of dates and what are critical path date items, so that we can know when we have them.
Right,
You all
things,
remembering
right.
that?
I remember that, and even things like the PLA, when do we have to make a decision on that?
Exactly.
Above and beyond the questions Chris had on the generator, just in general, things that we know we need an answer, but we don't know exactly when. So if you can give us some sort of guidance on that, that'd be good.
And if there's some confusion on that, I think we need to resolve it before waiting another couple more meetings to talk about it. Because that in and of itself, I think, is a critical path item to have the item list of critical path items.
Sure. Yeah. And Chris, you and I can talk offline if you want to.
No, I think we should discuss it openly with the committee, because I think it's not a track Chris's concern list, because, it's not a babysitting Chris list. It's
So
the
the
committee as a
whole
whole.
group, so it's not
I
gonna
think,
fall to a
I'm sure you want to know when we need to resolve the PLA item just as much as I do, or any other items that we need to do. So it's not a Chris item. It's a Next Generation Building Committee request. And it was in the minutes and we discussed it.
I think it's a number 6 item on the agenda, not on approve the invoices item. I mean, we still gotta go through the 3 invoices. They gotta be
Okay.
updated.
But if things aren't being done by someone who we're approving
I
an invoice
understand, but
on.
they're not billing us for it and saying that
Right.
we're paying for it. No.
Okay, no, it's a good point there. So any further discussion on the Arcadis North End? All in favor of paying the invoice of $857.59, say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Next item is O&G, pre-construction services, in the amount of $10,324.
Okay, motion to accept the invoice from O&G, $10,324 for the new North End School. Megan, second. Chuck, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. And then the last invoice.
Yep, last invoice is for Tecton Architects, architectural services, schematic design, in the amount of $86,578.
Okay, motion to approve the invoice to Tecton Architects for the new North End School, amount of $86,578, invoice dated 8/21. Motion to accept. Megan, second. Chuck, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. I believe that concludes the invoices. Owners rep, construction manager at risk, I guess this is
Yeah.
reports by you guys?
The only thing that we've been working on is all these estimates
Mhm.
between Norton and North End. We've finalized North End, final done, schematic design is done. And then we've been working on the Norton, the reconciliation as well as value management. So that's still a work in progress for us. I know Tecton has brought their value management for Norton, but we have not caught up to them yet, so.
Right, and I will go over Norton briefly like we did the last time for North End without making any decisions on it today.
Exactly. So that's basically what we've been doing behind the scenes.
Okay,
That's it for me.
Where are we at with the schedule? I mean, we're Well,
Update
getting closer
schedule.
behind the.
We're not
schematic.
behind, the only thing that we'll have to discuss with Tecton is what are we doing with design development? Because we were supposed to be moving into design development at this moment in time, and I think they're gonna wait till after tonight. And I will have this updated for for your next building committee meeting, regularly scheduled building committee meeting, which is September 14th. They were supposed to be moving into design development for both projects as of August 9th. So we are losing August. I'm not sure if that's gonna do anything or not. We have to talk about that. And you guys did what you needed to do with the hazmat materials. That's the only other thing that was on the schedule that was impending. So,
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Yep.
Oh, vice chair?
you wanna switch? We can switch.
Let him
No,
know.
no,
Perfect time, yep.
I'm good.
Okay, that concludes the owner's rep and CM at risk.
Yep, Greg, I can just add that
Yes, sure.
the hazmat consultant was engaged
Oh,
and
okay, good.
they started out at the Norton School. I think they were there Monday, Tuesday, and they were there today, and I think they're gonna be back there tomorrow. So they're doing their evaluation of the materials. They're gonna try to get back there next week, but it might be after the kids start school. Actually, I'm not sure when the kids start school. They start Tuesday, yeah. So
Tuesday through Thursday this upcoming week.
so they're gonna need to get up on the roof. That probably won't affect the kids in the classrooms. And they've actually, I think they haven't disturbed any of the teachers in school. So
And then what, they'll prepare a written report?
they're
or-
putting a report together, and they're gonna detail what is in the building and what needs to be abated.
Yeah, I guess I had a quick question on that, if I may. Did they give any indication as to when they'll have like a preliminary draft report,
You know,
findings, whatever?
We talked earlier this week. I reached out to Pete Felino, and he's been out of the office, so I haven't heard back from him. So I'm still waiting to hear back, and then I'll give you an idea of when the preliminary report will be available.
The only reason why I ask is it'll be relevant to the Norton cost estimate discussion, and if we could have a conversation, even if it's a preliminary conversation, to better hone in on with the estimators prior to whenever the next building committee meeting is, that would be helpful.
Agreed. Yeah. I left that message for Pete Felino, that
Okay.
we were looking for
All
an
right,
assessment as to what he had.
Great,
So,
thank you.
They don't have their contract yet. They received a draft contract, so I'm hoping that, between the town and Eagle Environmental, they can kind of get squared away on any conditions of the contract, and we can get that signed. But, they were gracious enough to get started this week.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, yeah, like Chris's point, I mean,
Yep.
are we clear on what we're looking for from?
Well, I thought it was made clear. I mean, it's, I don't want to speak on behalf of the whole committee, but
Okay,
what I understood is that there are items of which the committee needs to make decisions on, and there are questions that the committee has asked, and those were going to be tracked by Arcadis with this is the issue that was raised, or the question, here's the response, or it's still open, and here's when a response or a closure needs to happen, a critical path, such as PLA, for instance, or any of the other items. And that was 2 meetings ago. We didn't have anything discussed last meeting on that. It's now been 4 weeks. What's the status on that?
So, Chris, as it relates to the PLA, we have had that discussion, and I know it's been tabled only because of the other items that have been coming before this building committee. But we talked collectively as a group, and we realized that decision needs to be made before ONG and Tecton can finalize their design development.
Let me interrupt you. I'm not looking for an answer on the PLA. I'm not looking for you to give me an answer on the generator. I'm not looking for you to give me an answer on lightning protection or every other question. The issue was, who's tracking that? And to making sure all those questions are tracked and listed, and a critical date is listed for items that are critical, such as when do we need to make a decision on item X if we haven't made a decision? Or when does Tecton need to have issue A, B, C resolved, or so on and so forth? And that was my understanding. And I thought that was clear in the minutes. I thought I had asked who's tracking it and discussing. You says, well, discussed that Arcadis was gonna be doing that, and you said, yeah, we would. That's what we were looking for, and, you know, not for you to come in and say, oh, here's this item, because quite honestly, if I didn't bring up the PLA tonight, for instance, that might have got forgotten. So the whole purpose of the tracking was to have a list in front of us of open items and dates that need to be tracked, so that nobody here forgets all those items. And so it's not any one item, it's all the open items. They're getting lost and forgotten. Was that misunderstood?
I don't think it's misunderstood. We are tracking those items, Chris, and maybe it was misunderstood as to how we were going to report those. So we can certainly.
You know, maybe if you give us a spreadsheet or, send it to Rich so he can circulate it to the group and just say, right, so each meeting we check, PLA we need meeting after next or something like that.
Right.
So and you're right, so things don't fall through a crack.
Understood.
Good.
Because there's things that have been brought up many meetings ago. Don't know if they're forgotten, if they're being worked on, or if they were closed somehow. What's the status? Comments on the ed spec, for one, that was months ago. Were they resolved? How were they resolved? Who on the committee can discuss that? I don't know that anybody here can. And that was the whole question about that we raised, and we said, geez, how is this being tracked? And then that's when it was brought up that, well, you guys are gonna be tracking it so we can see. So that's what we're, I think, looking for. I'm just concerned, we're gonna be here in a meeting in January, and we're gonna find out, oh, by the way, if you don't get this answer tonight, and nobody's had a chance to talk about it, discuss it, or we find out that somebody says, hey, by the way, didn't we talk about this, and what's the resolution? And we find out, oh, it's too late to make that change, because we're already so far along into DD, it's gonna screw up the entire design and floor plan and yada, yada, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. And that's the intent, so we keep things on track. At least as I understood it. I mean, I'm one guy here. There's a lot of voices in the room. Let me know if I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot.
Well, it's just good to have, obviously, an ongoing record of where we are and what we're working on. That makes sense.
I guess I'm not clear on what the list of open issues is besides the PLA. I know we talked about the propane last time. There's been a couple of things with the ed specs and everything, but I don't think there's like a list of thousands of things that we're missing. Maybe
Well, that's a great point, though, that you can't answer that question as
That's
to what
what
the
I'm
open
saying.
items are.
Right.
And that's the whole point of, we should have a list as to what the open items are, whether
Yeah, but
there's
I'm
one
saying
or
if I
1,000.
don't remember them, then I don't think everybody's gonna remember them right now if they're not tracked somewhere. So, I mean, it sounds like we should have like
That's
a
what I'm saying.
working document where everybody can just add their open list of items, so we have something to track against.
As it relates to the ed specs too, Chris, that predates our involvement, so I'll have to go back and take a look at what was discussed in the ed specs, and maybe I can get caught up with Dr. Solon and.
We have them. We have the questions.
Right, so if you put together a list and, forward it on to Rich, so you can forward it to us, that'd be great.
And then as questions come up,
Right, we can
whether
sort of, yep.
offline, somebody sends something to Rich that says, hey, can we add this to the list because such and such, or it comes up in the meeting, whether it's raised by the committee or you or anybody else that sees a critical path item or something that they think is important, but maybe it's a non-issue and we discuss it, and that's fine, we got that covered, whatever it may be. Maybe someone raises an environmental concern for North End, and then we discuss it, and well, there's no school for them, we don't have to worry about asbestos. Oh, okay. Like any other discussion item, maybe that doesn't even make it on the list.
I think it's really a critical point to get that going. That's good.
So how are we doing that? That's what I still don't understand. It's great to say we're gonna have something, but who's doing it? How are we doing it? I mean, it sounds like it should just be a living document. There's a great thing called Google Docs. It's live. You can see everybody's questions. Just track a list, and then we all have it. Then we update. So I can see what Chris is thinking without having to wait for an email from Rich that might come a week later for the agenda. Or
The way I've always,
what I have, just to make a list.
that's a thought, there's a lot of thoughts. The way I'm used to it on my project is there's a gatekeeper of that. And when we come to the meeting and it's that time to talk about it, go, okay, here's a list, items 1.2, that was closed. We resolved this somehow and we get a summary. Item 1.3, that's still open. Where do we stand on that? That's Jeff's item. You got any update? No, okay, whatever. Okay, item 3, we haven't even discussed it yet, but you know what? We need a decision by November 5th meeting. So who's taking the lead on this and what are we gonna do about it? And one person do it. My understanding was Arcadis was gonna do that. We talked about that in the meeting. I don't know if that was my misunderstanding, but I mean, you guys have seen projects run, similar type of thing. And I thought that's what we were looking for, and I thought that's what was discussed.
Right. We do need some guidance on dates because we don't really know when, critical dates are.
Yeah, that was where the important part of having Arcadis be the gatekeeper of those open items, so that they could track what the critical, assign a date, need answer by date. Some of them, what color paint for the front door. I don't think we need to worry about that right away, but a decision on the overall aesthetics of the building that we need to vote on for SD, maybe we need that tonight, or whatever. But I mean, I'm not trying to create the scenarios to describe it. We discussed it 2 weeks ago, and Arcadis was going to be, it was determined that Arcadis was, Tecton said they had spoken with them, there was discussions offline, and he said that, yep, we'll be doing that.
Yeah, and
But
I,
that tracking isn't anywhere that we can see it.
we do meet on a bi-weekly basis as a project team, the construction manager, architect, and owners rep. So we do track those items there. I didn't know that we were gonna have that discussion in details at the building committee meeting, so that was my misunderstanding.
Well, I'm just curious, were any of those items that we need to act on or that, we need to know is closed? We don't. So, you guys are working diligently on it. I know the questions I might have, I have no idea if they've been addressed or not. And maybe somebody else in here raised a point that it's beyond the scope of my expertise and something I think of, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And we come to the meeting and I'm like, well, geez, so-and-so raised an issue. What's the status of that? Is it closed? Is whatever it is, the issue with the different trees that was brought up, native versus non-native. Was that resolved or not? So that's what I thought we were going to be doing. And again, I'm one guy here. If I misunderstood, if there's some other process afoot, if the rest of the committee thinks it's silly and I'm just wasting everybody's time, speak up. That's fine. But that was my understanding.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that we'll have a list of things we'll follow up on and communicate, where we are on those things. So why don't I coordinate with Rich and Jeff, Justin, will make sure we have what is outstanding and a path to bring that to the next meeting. I for a review of that, I think it makes sense to do it here as opposed to, exclusively through a Google Doc. As much as I appreciate the Google Doc process, and questions I think should probably go through Rich. Things that, do we add this to the list of follow up or not? Just my 2 cents.
Okay, so I guess we'll put together you'll put together a list, get it to Rich so he can get it to us, and we'll add things that we think of that should be on there. I guess we're making it an agenda item at each meeting, here's the list, here's even just to look at it, make sure we're not losing dates. And also, right, so we know if, 8 things are coming due at one meeting, maybe we can spread them out a little, so it would be good to know critical dates. Okay, any more discussion or questions for the owner's rep, construction manager? And we get to the architects, schematic design review. First, the North End Elementary budget adjustments. And Tecton has sent us a new list, the green, red, and yellow. And what you had asked us that we go through and approve as a committee. removal of items. Right now, we're 8,362, that 8,362,000 above that we have to reduce, and there are actually three categories that we can do here. One would be to approve removal of an item. Second would be to reject removal of an item. Third would be to remove, but ask Tecton to get as an alternative. You got to get a quote on it as an alternative. So if we get further down the project and there's money available, we'll know where we stand on that. And what they had asked is that we go through the list and the committee approve removal of items, either on a one-by-one basis or on a group-by-group basis.
Big friend you may have. What's
Yes.
What's the difference between this and this?
Two different cost estimators. Our cost estimator was the generator of this document, and ONG is the generator of this document. There are two different numbers that are associated with this.
But this one has been reconciled between the two estimators?
Which one?
No, that is our VU log
So
from our estimators.
when it says reconciled, what does that mean?
That means that was reviewed between the two estimators. We're just not coming to a complete agreement on the final number of the carry.
So should
We
we
are
be
hearing,
voting on this list or
it's the same list, the values are different though for each item.
Yeah, you're not
Right.
voting on the values, the dollar values, you're voting on the item itself. So do you want to take it out or not? And this gives you an idea of what's worth the dollar. So you don't have to vote on the dollar.
Although when
just
we're
on the
done,
item.
well, we know how close we are to budget.
Right.
I mean, we'll have two different numbers. One will say you're right on budget, another may say you're 3% above budget. And so, is that acceptable?
I got the impression that all of our parties that were involved felt like, inside of 5% of the budget was acceptable.
Close.
Right.
Yes.
So as long as we go through the list and on both estimates we're within 5%, then we'll feel okay about it. Moving on. Okay, so
So just to clarify for you, for myself, Craig, and what we were just talking about, using the Tecton version for the point of this discussion, we could either go G1, yes, no, or add alternate, or we could say green, yes, no, add alternate with the exceptions of 1, 2, or 3 items or no items, or is that right?
that's the way I understand it too. Yeah. Or maybe you ought to do like G1 and S1 through 12, so we cover different parts of the building.
That's probably a little more.
Just in case there's any discussion. So the first one, reduction in design contingency to 5%. Both estimates agree that's acceptable.
We're gonna continue to carry the larger design estimate contingency, but we understand that it will be adjusted at the DD level. And if it helps us get us closer to the budget, then we can make that adjustment now, but I don't think it really needs to be done.
Okay.
We're gonna be within that 5% number that we had talked about without making that adjustment.
Oh, okay. That's assuming everything in green we approved the draft.
Correct. With the exception of that G1, is what you're saying.
Yes.
If we don't approve G1, but approve all the other greens, we're still okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So. Can I interrupt real quick? So this list for the north end, there were some discussions that Dennis asked about alternatives to roofing. and value management related to just doing shingle roof or looking at alternatives. We did look at those, and when we get there, I'd like to just insert, so as we go through this list, I'd like to insert those numbers because
Sure.
this list didn't include some of those updates that we would like to proceed with, if that's okay. So, we're not suggesting that we need to go to the 5% reduction either.
Okay. So the general feel would be to reject that right now?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, so is there a motion to reject G1 at this time?
So moved.
Second, good. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so G1 stays, so that increases the cost by that $1.6 million. That we'll have to make sure at the end we're still within 5%.
We have it.
Okay,
Well, I'll give you the update, yep,
Great.
as we go through.
Thank you. Okay, then the site, S1 through S12. Any discussion on any one of those or any of those that you feel we should keep in? Megan?
Well, I feel that the amphitheater, seat walls, retaining walls, I feel like that is definitely an add alternate. I loved that idea, so I would love to keep it, but if it ends up being something that we can't do, I understand, but I feel like it's really an awesome feature, right? So that's the one on that list that really.
What would be the effect of leaving that in? Would that take us out of budget? I mean,
I
or should
think,
we leave it in for now and then we'll get to the bottom
I think
or as an
this-
alternate?
yeah, I think the suggestion as
As an alternate,
is a
okay.
great idea. Yep.
So those are 2 through 4?
I just S2 was the one that I was.
Oh, just the
which is
amphitheater.
In the amphitheater. I don't.
My only caveat to that is I think we can achieve the amphitheater and seat walls in a more effective kind of detail.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it, we'll make it an alternate. As we develop it, we'll share it with this committee, but that's a great idea.
Very
Yep.
good. Any other comments on S1 through S12?
What's the cost of S12 on ONG one and then the irrigation?
Because we didn't carry it in that initial
Yeah.
estimate, so we couldn't really credit it out of that number.
Yeah, if you go to the NA at the back, it just says it's not included in our reconciled estimates, therefore we can't take it out.
Why didn't you include it in the reconciled estimate?
When we reconciled, we decided to take it out. So we took it out of our estimate right then and there.
So it's already
So
gone.
It's already
It's
gone from
our-
ONG's.
Their estimate. Gotcha.
So things like that are what account for the delta in the two. At the end of the value management process, there is a delta between our cost estimator's number and ONG's number, and that's one of the items.
Is there irrigation for sports fields at the other schools? No.
High school,
The high school.
we'd certainly like to have them, but
I think it's also important to note, I believe that the state still does not, that's an
Reimburse
ineligible
on
item.
that, yeah.
So just keep that in mind too.
More comments on S1 through S12? Okay, so can we have a motion to approve removal of items S1 through S12 with the caveat that S2 will be an alternate, retained as an alternate by Tecton?
Move.
Okay, second. Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
opposed? Okay. So we're up to the roof, Jeff, if you want to.
Sure, so you see B1A, BE1B, we were asked to explore alternatives, so we explored two other alternatives, one of which is, the description is provide asphalt, roll roofing or shingle roofing on a nail board panels in lieu of the standing seam. That value deduct is $1,377,526.
That is on the OMG list,
And-
it's BE1C.
And then BE1D, we were, it's similar kind of substitute, provide galvanized standing seam roofing in lieu of standing seam on nail board. And that was in PAC's estimate, 1,495,122. We are recommending out of BE 1A through 1D, we're recommending BE 1C, which is going to basically a shingle. It's a 30-year, I think after your comments, Dennis, we revisited that, we asked, it's a reasonable solution and it's a long-standing, we can get a 30-year shingle, so. So that's our recommendation on that one. And then the others on that section, if you're doing them by section, did not change. So the BE2, BE3, and BE4, our recommendation remains.
So the BE1C would just be like a regular roof shingle I'd get from my house.
Yeah, we would probably go make sure that there's a 30-year warranty on it. We might increase the grade of the thickness of the shingle, but
Right, and it's the pitched roof, shingles all the way up on the sides.
yes, sir.
Is that the Dennis here?
Yeah,
Roof.
no, I'm good with that.
Okay. And, yeah,
Sure.
reducing the sunshades, I know you have 50%, 100%. What is the effect of that? Is it a lot more heat in the building or a lot more light, or what's the story?
It's a great question. So when our team was working on putting on sunshades, they got a little overzealous and put them on orientations that don't necessarily need them. So we're gonna keep them on the south side. Is where they need them.
Right,
So
that's a 50%, that's a BE3.
Yep.
So just for clarification, your reduction of 50% of the sunshades saves 269,000. O&G with the 50% saves 506.
Yeah, just
From
because
your
we had a
estimate?
higher number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
And that's where sometimes they just don't agree.
Sure.
They agree on the quantity, just not the unit price, like
Yeah.
the cost.
I didn't argue that one.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I think so. I just pointed that out.
But you can't take the high from this one and the high from
Yeah,
this one.
it's,
You
yeah,
can't
it's
keep going back and forth.
selective, yeah. Yeah, no, we'll stay with, the Tecton and working through that one. So,
Okay, any more comments on the exterior, on the roof?
You just say what speak the difference of the exterior storefront with curtain wall. Storefront versus curtain wall.
It's, so it's more about management of sizes of glazing. If oftentimes if you exceed a certain dimension, 10 feet, 12 feet, you're compelled to use a different structural system, curtain wall in lieu of storefront, which is more of a aluminum stick frame, framing system for your glazing. So this is always a value management item, and we try as we get into design development to design the apertures in a way to stay within those tolerances so we can utilize storefront system. It's not necessarily reducing the amount of glazing or the overall the overall transparency of an elevation. Is just being a little bit smarter about the construction techniques.
it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a large glass space, the curtain wall is the large glass space
Yep.
with less framing built in.
Correct.
And all we're doing is adding more framing in a storefront method. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, 2-story glass wall looks great, right?
Yeah.
It costs a lot more per square foot. To go to storefront, you put a beam at the midspan.
Sure,
and
you're
you
throwing
drop
frame into it.
and-
Yeah.
And you save some money. So we're
Yeah.
trying to be thoughtful about that.
You don't want to see the edge slab anyhow, right?
And we've got plenty of details for that.
Any more comments on the exterior? Then we have a motion to change the roof to asphalt 30-year shingles, pitched roof, and a saving of $1,377,526 over the estimate, on the Tecton estimate. I don't know if your estimate's going to be somewhat different, or?
Well, we got 1,386,000.
Okay, so it's essentially the same, right? And otherwise, accept all the other reductions listed under the exterior roof, BE2 through BE4. Motion to Dennis, any second?
Yeah.
Second, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed?
I,
Okay, so that passes the changes on the building exterior. Jeff, you're keeping a track of how close we're getting?
I have, the PAX estimate, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Building interior, linoleum tile in lieu of terrazzo flooring. I think you had discussed that at the last meeting, that it's not the old 1950s linoleum, that it'll look decent throughout the building.
Yes, we use it quite often in contemporary schools. It's a natural material, so it doesn't have any off-gassing. It's very low maintenance. It's basically soap and water. Has
No waxing.
no waxing.
No wax, okay.
And so, yeah, from an operational cost perspective and life cycle, it's better than like the VCTs of the world and VETs of the world and the LVTs, but not as good as like a rubber, if you will. That's a step up. So this is one, as we move through the design, as Justin had mentioned, we would likely kind of assemble, add alternates for certain areas, so that if, it's easier to price, one floor as linoleum, one floor as rubber. It's easy for those contractors to do that. So as we move through, we'll continue those dialogues with the committee.
Jeff, just a curious question on the floor type. I don't know much about it, but I see a lot in your schools, whereas the chairs have, felt pads on the bottom and stuff. Does this require that versus the other does not, or are we looking at felt pads no matter what?
You're probably looking at it for linoleum. If you go to rubber, you want you want wheels, right? I mean, think about it, rubber, like your tires, it sticks. So when you drag a chair, it bounces. So that's going to be part of the conversation when we talk about alternates, because it's specifically tied to like when the interiors come in and present FF&E, that it's going to matter. It's not a
That's
huge
more,
cost
again,
swing.
Does it change the FF&E? We save $1 million on this and you raise $1 million on that, for instance.
It's not, the fee on the FF&E doesn't move the needle. This moves the needle. So as far as costs, we just have to make sure we make the right choices with the basis of the FF&E.
Just a side question on that. Does Ben's budget change by $500,000 a year because he's got to change out felt pads every May 20th?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we haven't run into that issue before. I
Is
think
the issue that it scratches, the seats scratch the linoleum? Because I know for us, waxing the floor, it like, if you don't have the pads on, it just sticks.
Yeah.
When it gets humid, all the chairs stick to the floor, and that's why we put the pads on in addition to some of the scratching. So is the question really more so about scratching the linoleum versus terrazzo? It's not as hard?
Yeah, it's a protective to the feet of the,
Yeah.
It gives you more life to your flooring.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really
Sure.
you don't need them.
Yeah.
Linoleum doesn't scratch like a LVT or a
Right.
VCT, but when we get to that point, which is kind of midpoint of DD, we're gonna show you, here's kind of base, here's middle grade, here's the pros and cons, life cycle maintenance, durability, look and feel.
Okay.
So we'll go over all that, but our experience has been, that's where we can make some pretty good savings and get some really good value for the owner. If you have the budget at the end, you can just flip the switch and you know what the cost is for operating. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, all the rest are yellow, so we'll ignore those for now, but
You gonna go from?
Yeah, so
Okay.
my apologies,
Sure.
we printed out
Oh.
the wrong one.
Okay.
So the O&G has the correct number identification, and I just want to go through the additional
Oh, okay, yes.
recommendations. BI2 actually is the linoleum tile in, okay, so we cannot, sorry. We have BI4, which is the provide ceramic tile on wet walls and toilet rooms in lieu of full coverage. We recommend, we took a look at the interior elevations. We think that we can accommodate this without reducing the durability within the toilet rooms, and would advise to accept that alternate.
So
And
you're
for-
moving BI4 to green?
Yes. Which is, in PAC's estimate, is a value of 100. The revised number is $158,440.
Justin, the wet walls are lavatories and water closets?
Yes, yep. So that is the next item that is recommended. The next item, which is not on this list, is BI6, which is reduced tackable wall covering allowance by 50%. And this has been reinforced. We had an interiors meeting earlier this week. We are investigating having a higher percentage of magnetic whiteboards in lieu of tackable wall coverings. And our basis of design basically had, in much the same way that we had provided probably more solar shading as we need in the building, we provided more tackable wall covering surfaces than we think we actually need. So we think that this is an acceptable reduction. And for PAC's estimate, it's $122,650.
So the reason I hear a little, the reason why we changed it is when we reconciled afterwards with O&G, we went through each toilet room and quantified. Our estimator kept more tile, and then when Tom and Bruce went through it, we agreed to reconcile to the 122,650. So that's why it changed from what you see there and to what Justin presented.
Did we skip one?
We still have like B7 through B10 on the O&G list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
We'll go through those.
B7 and B8 are not recommended at this time. That's why they're not in the accepted column. But one was providing a solid wall in lieu of a folding partition at the barn door at the gymnasium. BI8 was delete interior hollow metal storefront on first floor from corridor to gym. We think those are value added to the project, so we had not recommended those value management items. The next item, BI9, is reduced food service per our quote from our food service equipment designer. And that is a reduction in the kitchen equipment in O&G's estimate, 89,262. In PAC's estimate, it is, what's that?
The difference is the adders, because we gave you that number, okay.
Yes,
Yep.
Yeah, this is trade costs here that will reflect this.
No, this should be total.
So there's no real hardware.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's no hardware being left out. It's just estimated cost.
Yes,
Sharpened
and
pencil.
it's being more deliberate in the selection of equipment. And yeah, it's, we'll provide all of the equipment necessary in the design.
So that number has a detailed list behind it, which will, if you're interested, we'll share information, share that to the Google Drive.
Then BI10, I know in trying to reduce space, we'd like to know what that is or where that is.
Yeah, so after our last meeting, we went back, looked through the floor plans, and where that space is essentially the hallways, corridors, the bump outs. We had, like, if you trim in each of the projections we had, like at the end of the hallway, we projected the glass wall like 4 feet. We think we can go back 2 feet, so we're saving, we're pinching. It's not a lot of square footage, but we think if we're more thoughtful and focused on those areas, we think we can save 750 square feet. I know it's not a lot, but we think it's worthwhile looking at. So it pulls in things like foundation walls, it pulls in, you know, things like exterior soffits, that kind of stuff, so. And that's it for the interiors.
So for the record, our recommendations are acceptance of BI 1, BI 2, BI 4, BI 6, BI 9, and BI 10.
Did you go through it? 1, 2, how about 4?
1, 2, 4,
6, 9, and 10.
9, and 10.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Question on, guy 5. What does that entail?
This is the provide 2x5 acoustic ceiling tile in lieu of linear wood ceilings.
Right.
Metal, right? The linear wood ceilings
Yeah,
are
they're-
metal, what they look like wood.
Yeah, they're a metal, they're an accent ceiling, wood look metal. It's like a Hunter Douglas product that we are providing in areas in the building of intersections or breakout areas, just to provide a little bit more drama in those areas. I will note that we're recommending taking this as part of a Norton value management item. So that when we discuss that, I think
We don't need drama.
we have enough. Is that what you're saying?
So right now, we're leaving the linear wood ceilings in, because B5 isn't one that we're cutting at this time.
It's not one that is on our list of recommended gets.
So, all those in favor of cutting items B1, BI1, BI2, BI4, BI6, BI9, and BI10? Motion first. Motion, yep, okay. Dennis, second? Second, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, passed.
I'd like to consider a motion to delete BI5 or to accept
Oh.
BI5
BI5, accept BI5 as
as a deletion.
a deletion. Okay. Fine, I'm reasoning or is it necessary?
It's, like Justin said, it's drama, and we can achieve the same thing maybe in a different way. The one detail that I did not like in, what's the first school we went to?
Brookfield.
Brookfield.
Is where you have those ceilings, you can see the exposed duct crossing the gap.
Okay.
So, to me, that's aesthetics.
Sure.
Very few people look up in the world.
Any further discussion on deletion of the BI5 linear wood ceilings?
What was the tax estimate for it?
191,840. It's a lot of drama. I know.
All in favor of adding BI5 to the list of items to be removed? Or is a motion to add BI5 to the list of motion items to be removed? Second, okay, oh,
you need a second.
Second. Second. Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
1, 2, up. 3 nays. Sarah, Rich, and Megan. You want further discussion or where?
Well, I think that maybe that's something that we can decide further on, especially after we see some renderings as to what it will look like. So, and maybe there will be some areas where we can use it and want the drama, and other areas where we can say, hey, maybe we'll use some panels here.
Can we
So-
remove and keep as an alternate? So you can show us
I-
with and without,
I
and
think,
that's how you do it the last minute, I mean, it's right, it's not.
I think it's a great one to put on the list that we can track for, alternates.
So, or you remove it now, and then next time you draw, we'll put it in, and then we'll back it back out again.
That's my life for the list.
Well, we're removing it in Norton, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's worthwhile to track as like if we want to make it an alternate, then, to try to appease the entire community.
Acceptable to you to make us an ad alternate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll amend the motion.
Okay, motion amended to remove BI five, but leave as an ad alternate. Second, any second?
Yeah,
Go
sure.
ahead,
I'll
second,
second
okay.
that, yeah.
All in favor?
No, it just helps lower ours a little bit.
Opposed? Rich still,
I'm
Rich is
abstaining-
still
I'm
opposed.
abstaining on that.
Okay,
And Chuck is opposed.
And I said aye to adding it as an ad alternate.
an alternate, okay. So it sounds like all approvals
I
and
got
one abstention.
I got
No,
One vote, one number.
Chuck, one
One
no,
nay.
okay.
I still want to keep taking it.
The good news is that we're gonna do this all over again in 3 months, so.
And then we can paint everything black, or those edges are, so it blends in, so you don't see the shiny.
I have no problems with that.
I was actually gonna ask about that.
Okay, next one, structural ST1. You had described this at the last meeting, but maybe you can tell us
Sure.
what this means or.
Yeah, this was simply confirmation from the structural engineer that we can utilize a lower pound per square foot amount for structural steel just by being efficient with spans and our current column grids. So this is a recommendation for both projects that to reduce the structural allowance from 11 pounds per square foot to 10 pounds per square foot. That's simply the weight of the steel. And that, in Pat's estimate, that is,
417,500.
thank you.
Any discussion on?
There was some reconciliation with PAC's estimator and ONG's estimator after the last meeting for the items that were additional to this list, and that's why at the same time we went through and if you remember at the last time we presented, we didn't have a chance to reconcile the BM items, and that's why some of these have changed, been modified.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve, okay. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, next, MEP. So I recall, this means we keep geothermal in, if we're only going through the green ones.
Yes, correct. So,
Right.
so our recommendation is to accept MEP 2, MEP 3, MEP 4, MEP 5, and I believe we are recommending that we accept MEP 6 with the potential for providing it as an alternate, the additional generator volume.
Discussion on any of these items?
Make a motion to approve 2, 3, 4, and 5. But not 6.
So moved, okay. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
3, 4, 5, right?
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. But retain 6 in there as it is.
Yeah, let someone else make that motion.
What about 7A, 7B, 7C?
Those are simply the other mechanical system options that we are not recommending pursuing.
Right now, we're keeping geothermal in,
Correct.
so,
And
yeah, so
north end.
7 through are not there.
7, 8, and C.
Right.
So can I clarify MEP 6 now? The way that we're leaving it is that we continue to have the larger generator as a warming center. Is that correct?
Nobody's motion to accept or reject it.
Yeah, so yeah, it would be correct.
Right, leave the larger one in.
Retain as is for the moment.
Retain as is, okay.
And one of the things that as we get into design development, we're gonna have more accurate, engineering about what's included. We'll have those conversations about what's included as part of needing to provide the building as a warming center. So we'll be able to have a greater definition at the conclusion of design development as to the size of the generator and what's included for emergency power.
And I assume that's an item that can be changed easily at any point in the process.
It can be changed.
It could be changed.
Yes, Rich, from my point of view. It's an absolute yes.
Okay.
Electrical gets done just the last 2 weeks of the project.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we get to the conclusion of DD, we're gonna wanna tidy those up.
So where do we stand?
So with the,
Well, hold on, I don't know if there was a motion.
Oh, motion on, well, there's one on
Reject it.
MEP 2 through MEP 5.
Those were all accepted.
All accepted, yeah.
Thought we voted on that.
And I'll make a motion to reject the recommendation of MVP 6.
Right, that stays on the list.
Yeah.
We'll still have to accept it though, or like to reject it, no?
Yes.
It's being recommended to,
Oh,
so you're
Okay,
saying
so-
you
yeah, I
don't
mean, we
wanna
have to
change it.
say, yeah, we
right,
want
okay,
that.
so motion to maintain MEP 6 on the list, reject removal.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
What are we,
And I,
what are we saying? Keep
Keeping
it there for now?
MEP 6 on the list. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
As an alternate?
Not as an alternate, as
You're rejecting it.
We're not.
You're
we're
rejecting the
keeping it on the list.
Right. you know,
Rejecting the suggestion to reject, right.
Rejecting the
Two negatives.
Two negatives. is
Two
positive,
negatives
yeah.
and positive, right.
It stays on the project, it stays in the project, but it also stays on the list too as a possible.
It's a pot, not a
Right.
road, yeah.
we can revisit it again if we need to down the line.
So the tax estimate of all the ones that were accepted and rejected now totals, and the biggest change was the change to the
Roof.
the generator, and then the addition of the deletion of the wood ceilings. The total is $7,972,556.
Say that again, please.
$7,972,556.
That's the total accepted VM, or VM. That's total. So we just saved that much, we saved $8 million.
Well, that's without the G1 though, correct?
That is without the
Without
G1.
G1 there,
That is
yeah.
leaving the PAC's estimate of design contingency at 6 point, is it 6.5 or 7?
And where does that leave us
Whatever it
total
was.
then?
I was getting to that.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Puts us up to over 3 million, 3,018,000 or so, those changes. That's 73 million.
What do you have?
I have it puts us at 389, 796 over.
So for the PAC's estimate, Tecton's consultant, it's over budget by 389,796. I don't know what the delta is with,
389 more? Oh, over your budget, over your estimate.
correct.
Okay, we're 3,018,000 over.
It's only a factor of 10.
Could you say that number again, Jeff? I couldn't hear.
Sure, so using the PAC's number, Tecton's consultant's numbers reconciled at the overage is 389,796.
389,000.
Seven,
736.
yeah, seven, and I don't, ONG's was what?
3,018,000.
So just keep in mind that some of the bigger deltas are the multipliers, right? So we're using a slightly different design contingency, right? So that 1% on a
Oh, I rounded,
70, on a,
I took that
whatever
out,
it
I had
was,
that
60
back
million
in,
is,
but I'm rounding.
you know,
$780,000.
yeah.
They did take 181.
It's still 3,073,000 is only like 3.5%. We're just trying to
Still
keep
taking
it
the
5.
credit now.
So what are the
3 million.
percentages
Yeah.
we're over?
We're gonna make it a 10.
Right.
Well,
So
on,
you need to
on
take-
Tecton's
need to
number,
take
you're
that off,
a half
and
a
then you
percent,
step
maybe
Okay, so
5%.
we're 0.5% over budget. And on ONG, we're,
You said it was 3,018,000.
Yeah, I got-
We're about
Yeah,
there.
but I'm rounding, you know, I did.
Okay. Yeah, 4.2.
4.2%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we take the average for around 2%.
That's what I was.
Or at worst, 4%.
Right.
18%.
And
I
then
mean, is that realistic, even at the
On the money,
4%
so.
at this stage in the process, is that something that we can live with at this time?
Yeah.
There was a universal agreement about being south of 5%
Yeah.
is okay.
3 million.
So these
Right there.
guys, ONG, Arcadis, Tecton all believe south of 5% is okay. We're south of 5 in both estimates, so I think we're okay.
4.1%.
Especially if they ever carry the 8.5%.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
design contingencies.
We still have the
Oh,
higher.
so you use that as a positive
You
now.
have-
That's
you
right.
have the higher.
I see what you did there.
Okay. The next one we have, this is Chris, then your comments, your technical comments, what, have they been answered to your satisfaction, or anyone else on their comments? Need any more information?
At what point are we approving tonight?
After if we can get through all the questions you, and Chris had for TechCon, if you're happy with their answers.
I am
Good. Okay.
with mine.
Mhm. Chris, I know you had a lot of technical questions, I don't know.
They weren't all answered, but I'm not gonna let that hold up my vote because they're in the record and they've been presented to the design team, and either there's still a comment or there's not, but at some point, if something comes up, it was noted in the record as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not gonna hold up my approval, and I don't think we should be going back and forth bickering about, well, I don't like the answer to number 2. And we go back and forth, and the next week, we're like, well, okay, you said this to 2, but now it's just gonna be counterproductive to this, to the whole process. Those are my concerns. They were noted. Some of them were curious, some of them were bigger ticket items, but they've been noted for the record as far as I'm concerned. And they'll, I would think, would be on a list that we'll see next meeting as well. So I'm not gonna let that hold up. I don't know what anybody else's concerns were. Those were committee questions by a committee member, so it's not really, I think, for me, just it's, you know, the committee's okay with it. I'm a team player here.
Okay. So if we get through that, the next one, the architects before, hold on, okay, approval of schematic design, so with the changes, approved earlier today, such that we're within 0.5% or 4.3% of the budget, is there a motion to approve the schematic design for the North End School? I want to make the motion for the,
Yeah, I can make the motion to approve the schematic design.
Okay.
Given all the amendments we just made.
right, yeah, with all the current amendments. Anyone second it?
Yeah, I'll say.
Second it. Discussion?
So just kind of a question, because yesterday I tried again to look at the floor plan and the site plan, and I couldn't find them on Google Drive.
I have the same issue. We talked last meeting that everything was gonna be shared, so I thought either the file was coming again or it was gonna be on the drive. but we just got the drive, so I haven't had a chance to go through the drawings in full detail that I'd like to.
Is there a way to be more transparent with the committee?
We've provided all the information and the links. We've uploaded them to the Google Drive. I'm not sure what the disconnect was, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, that don't either.
Yeah, I think it was, I think it was on the technical side. We've provided it via
The new formula.
new formal links, and we've also posted every single presentation and piece of material to the working group shared drive. So if there's, and we've provided copies at every meeting. So if there's something else we should be doing, you just let us know and we'll do it.
I think it's just the shared drive that they were posted to, everybody didn't have access, but I think that's
Resolved now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the stuff for this committee had been going through me, and I didn't realize Vin had shared access to you for the working group, because I never am on that. I'm only in this committee working on that. So there's a misunderstanding there, and now our group has the shared drive.
So you added everybody that's on the committee to that working group? drive?
Right.
Okay.
So we can continue to post to that working drive, working.
If there are items to be discussed, like at these meetings, though, I think it should come
To you.
to me to go into the,
Chair.
into the folder that we add for these meetings.
But they've been
Which-
adding the material directly to the folder, so.
To the other, to the folder that's not publicly on the web that we discuss at this meeting. That's the problem. So I'll have to reconcile that tomorrow with you and figure out what needs to go up and where, if anything needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy. to
Yeah, you're not
post
doing
whatever
anything
you-
wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just ironing out a kink. That's all.
Yeah.
Are we comfortable taking a vote then, or do you wanna give the
I'll
drawings?
abstain from a vote if we take a vote, so I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I'm okay. I think we can add more comments at design development.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the schematic with the changes proposed today, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay, opposed?
Yeah, I guess I'm opposed to it.
Okay, went out of position, yep. Okay, so it looks like it passed 8-1.
I think everybody had me in the pool of who would oppose.
Would have been wrong.
Yeah, plus $5.
We're like an underdog.
I lost $5.
Can I just add one thing to Dennis's last point? If upon review of documents, please don't wait till design development. We want to make sure that we're responsive
Yeah, no, that's
if there's additional comments. And maybe this tracking mechanism that we discussed earlier, that's the appropriate venue for that.
Okay, next item, Norton School, we got the value management ideas. We're not voting on it, but if the architects could give us a brief summary. This one, we're over budget by $10.6 million.
So, and that is the tax, that is
That's
our
your
cost
estimate.
estimate. So there are a couple things, we went through this process at the last NGSBC meeting, if you can recall. The basis of design specifications between North End and Norton were very similar. So you're gonna see a lot of familiar material here. I will say in general, we were experiencing the same overages on Norton that we experienced on the North End. There are a couple of distinguishing characteristics of Norton, though, that also provide some additional additional budget considerations. One is the demolition of the existing building and any hazardous material there. That occupies about $2 million of the cost estimate to abate and demolish the existing building. Now, one of the things that we're going to be validating over the next several weeks and months is, as the hazmat consultant is coming on, and we review their report, we'll be able to hone in on exactly what that abatement number is or mitigation number is. Right now, it's just being right now it's just being used on a cost per square foot basis. So the other item is, because we're on an occupied site, there is a greater duration of construction. So the logistics of working on occupied site, as well as the duration, factor into extended general conditions, and a modest increase in the overall project budget, just in a straight line comparison between North End and Norton. So we have developed a list very similar to what we have reviewed in the past for the North End. We have them color-coded in green, yellow, and red. So if you want to go through them, some of them will be fairly straightforward. They'll be familiar pursuant to the conversation that we just had for the North End. So the first two items, G1 and G2, are in yellow. These are not recommended at this point, but we felt compelled to be able to demonstrate what these would mean for a reduction in the overall project budget. We are not looking to capture a reduction in the design contingency. That's item G1. Item G2, we felt that if we could simply shrink the building by 5%, we would, this is what the overall cost projection would be. We're trying to stay away from value management items that would impact curriculum space or student space within the building. So we're listing it as out there, but we've listed it in yellow. Item G3 is simply a reduction in the floor-to-floor height and the floor-to-roof height by 8 inches. And one of the reasons why we picked that particular number is we want to make sure that it's on a masonry course, so that when we're actually doing our elevations, you're looking very skeptical at me about that.
Paying close attention.
Okay. So simply going from a 14-foot floor-to-floor to a 13-foot 4-inch floor-to-floor, we can grab about $432,000. That's we've designed buildings without floor-to-floor height. It just means that we need to be very particular about our MEP coordination, structural coordination. It may mean that some of the classrooms, instead of 10-foot ceilings, would be 9'6" ceilings, but would still be fairly generous spaces.
My only thought on that one is, you guys have done a lot of building renovations, older buildings that you renovated to new, right?
Mhm.
How many of them have you said, man, back in the day, they really designed this with a perfect floor-to-floor height? Never. So I'm just thinking about future proofing.
Yeah, it's
Am I off base on that?
it's not one. None of this is are items that we want to bring to the table, but it's our responsibility to bring them to the table. So we think we're confident 13'4" is appropriate for today's complex educational buildings. We've done it successfully. It's to Justin's point. I think, the sacrifices possibly is, 9'4" to ceilings rather than 10-foot. But it saves across the board. It saves on the exterior, it saves on stairs, it saves on interior. You've been there, I'm sure, in that discussion. So, yeah, understood though. We understand.
So I probably should say some of the ground rules for this discussion, similar to our last meeting. We're not asking you to vote on anything, but comments like that give us a pretty good temperature of where the building committee is. And O&G also needs to price these out, or continue to price these out, and then we need to reconcile the numbers. So consider this a first pass for discussion.
So O&G hasn't initiated any reductions yet, so that in the last conversation, you guys had a list that was mildly
Ours is
different.
partial, so that's why
Okay,
it's drafted as part.
Like this particular item, we haven't analyzed that.
okay.
Okay, for the site, very similar items, balance the site contours, the cuts and fills. The distinguishing factor for this is that we have ostensibly a two-phase building process where we're going to be doing the construction of the school on the parcel of land. Then we're going to be doing a demolition and need to fill in the hole and pave the area. So we anticipate that we can have more or less a balanced site, but we're going to have to pay a lot greater attention to that detail than, say, the north end. Item S3, so item S2, S4, all the items that are in grays or light grays or white are items that showed up on the value management log for the north end, but because they're not present at Norton, we felt that we should at least list them in this document, but they're basically NA or not applicable here. So item S2, S4, 9, 10, and 12 were not items that were part of the basis of design for Norton, but they were for North End. We're just simply listing them as NA. So item S3, eliminate seawalls. That is a similar value management item that we had on the North End for Norton. Is approximately $750,000.
Why is it such a large number? And where were the seawalls originally that be such a big? Where were they originally located? On Norton.
On towards the playscapes, I believe we had some out in the
Essentially, all sides of the building. As you enter the building, there was a kind of a boulevard, if you will. If you remember Green Boulevard, all along that boulevard, there were seawalls, I think. And then over around the play areas to define the play area where the play structures were, those were all seawalls. Similar to the previous conversation, can we look at some kind of better balance there, and or add alternates? Would be something that we'll consider and refine between now and our next meeting with you. But there were significant all the way around and well identified on the site plan once you have access to it. Yep.
Okay, item number S5 was provide standard concrete sidewalks in lieu of areas that we had concrete pavers. That was a similar that we had from the north end. Item S6 was eliminate prefabricated bridges. We had two that were identified on the site in order to accommodate some topography. We think that, in lieu of providing a prefabricated bridge, we can have a better or a less costly system to accommodate that grade change. Eliminate frost-proof bubblers on the site. This was an item that we had identified for the north end and anticipate that being a value management acceptance. Provide cast-in-place concrete curbs in lieu of a quarter of the granite curbing, or a quarter of the granite curbing that is, or a quarter of the curbing that is shown on the site plan is granite. So we are assuming that we will move to a concrete curb. That was a similar one for the north end. Similarly, we think that in a wooded site, we can reduce our planting allowance, utilize some of the natural vegetation that is present on the site, and be a little bit more strategic in our new plantings. Item number S13 is an item that's unique to Norton. The current site plan shows our entry drive to the east of the property going a lot closer to the property line, which requires extensive excavation and reinforcement with a retaining wall in order to accommodate that grade change between the drive and the neighbor to the east. We think simply by maintaining the existing contours or the existing pavement, we can eliminate that need for additional retaining. So that's item number S13, and that's a pretty healthy number, 416,680.
The reason why it's healthy is because you have cut, export, and walls, so that adds up quick.
Item S14 is reduce concrete sidewalks by 30%. Now, we have an awful lot of concrete sidewalks that are towards the south of the property between the road and the parking areas. We think we can be more strategic, as well as wider expanses on the boulevard going up to the school. We think we can still provide safe pedestrian access with sidewalks, but we don't need to be as extensive as we showed on the site plan. Items S15A and S15B, we had some discussion earlier in the working meeting regarding the access drive to Sharon Drive. Now, we hear and we believe that that access is more or less a precondition with our public safety partners in town. The question is, so we showed what it would mean to completely eliminate it, just so everybody is armed with that number at their disposal. That's $448,000. We have an item 15B that's listed in yellow. We think that there's probably a compromise on this one, where our current access drive is shown as 24 feet wide, which is a two-way street. The assumption was that we may be able to accommodate two-way traffic there if the school operationally felt that they needed that as a second ingress and egress to the site. We think if we can provide simply that as an emergency response or an emergency outflow or egress from the site, we can limit the width. We know that from a logistics standpoint, we are going to need to provide that as a construction entrance anyway. So a lot of the initial clearing work is going to need to be done. So we think that may be, we're going to investigate this further as we have discussions with ONG, but we think if we can limit the width, we may be able to achieve an economy there. Any questions about the site items that are on the list?
Is the secondary access drive paved?
It is on the current documents.
Considered grass pavers?
I don't believe we've considered them completely for the entire expanse, but it's something that we can price out between now and our next meeting.
What is that?
Grass pavers.
Shape of the hole so grass grows up, so you actually mow it, but it looks like.
So you
So
can
if you have
actually drive it
plow it, can you still plow across those?
Yeah, I think we can provide a couple of options here. You know, there are a couple of strategies. We've done it for other schools. We provide basically a paved sidewalk for pedestrians and then reinforce on either side of the sidewalk so that an emergency response vehicle or fire apparatus can use it in the event, but it still provides that pedestrian sidewalk access. So I think we can look at a couple of different models. Thanks, Dennis. Any other questions regarding site? Okay. Building exterior, we have a few on here. The first one is item BE3A, which is eliminate the wood window slats. Frankly, the last renderings that we showed you did not have the wood window slats on them. So that we think this is a no-brainer, as they say. Item BE4 is a similar storefront in lieu of curtain wall that we reviewed for the north end. And item BE5 is simply a different specification for our cementitious siding, which was a similar consideration on the north end. And we'll continue to take a look at these as we did today. There may be some more as we speak with ONG, but we'd be prepared to discuss them further at our next meeting. For the building interior, item BI1 and BI2 are similar from the terrazzo flooring. for going to linoleum tile. Item BI4A was similar to the north end, the ceramic tile on the wet walls in toilet rooms in lieu of the full coverage. That's almost a $100,000 get. BI4B was simply us saying what does it look like if we use CMU walls rather than light gauge metal framing and tile. Item here, Dennis is BI5, provide 2x5 acoustic ceiling tile in lieu of linear wood. We are recommending that. It's approximately $110,000 value. Item BI6 is reduce tappable wall covering by 50%. That's a similar comment that we had mentioned on the north end. Also similarly, item BI9, reduce food service per quote from Crabtree McGrath. That's approximately $140,000. This is very similar. We're not going to reduce the types of equipment. It's just simply being a little bit more economical. Item BI10, we have shown in yellow. However, it might as well be red. This is a reduction in square footage by 2,000 square feet by optimizing non-program spaces. Now, one of the things that we've mentioned in previous building committee meetings is we have incorporated a request to add additional intensive education resource space, ABA classrooms within this building in order to diversify and satisfy a need within the district. So we heard that loud and clear in some of our programming sessions, in some of our discussions with district and the faculty and working group in our meetings. So we don't recommend that yet. We don't recommend that at all, but we felt compelled to show you what that would mean if we reduce that square footage. Item number BI11, reduce interior storefronts by 50%. We think that we can be strategic in our locations of interior glazing. So this is $325,000 item. Item BI12 is one that we put in yellow. This was simply, we were wondering what it would mean if we eliminated the height of the stage, still provided the location and space and the openings between the gymnasium and the cafeteria, but simply kept that as, say, ground level classrooms. And in the event of a performance, we would incorporate portable risers that we would be able to do. That is, in our conversations earlier today, we didn't necessarily think that this was one that we would advocate pulling the trigger on, but especially considering that we want to make sure that we have parity and continuity between the two schools. And plus, everybody just likes the stage. Kids like the stage too. So those were the building interior recommendations. I'm sure when we go through in more detail with ONG, there may be some additional items. But are there any questions on that?
Before you get the exterior, I just want to go back to the exterior. That provide more in that BE6, that was applicable to Norton. So I just want to, that's on our list, and I just want to make sure that you mention that in case the building, so it's not the first time, next time. That BE6 is for Norton, provide more galvanized metal siding and a little vertical metal siding. It's still a metal siding.
Okay.
But just, so that should not be faded, that's all.
Okay.
I don't know if you got that. BE, oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, our value for that was around 102,000 credits, so it's not insignificant.
BI10 and G2 are mutually exclusive.
Yes, they are mutually exclusive. Okay, item number ST1, it was a similar structural item to reduce the weight of the structural framing from 11 pounds to 10 pounds per square foot. It's a approximately $350,000 change or credit. Okay, here is where we have some distinctions in the recommendations between Norton and the North End. Based on our deltas, we do think that we should consider going to a gas-fired hot water heater in lieu of water-to-water heat pump water heaters, which was option 3 in the mechanical. It's MEP 1B. And the reason why this is a greater credit or greater value management item on Norton rather than the North End is because we're not bringing a new gas line to the site. There's already gas there. So we think that in order, as it stands now, barring any of the other considerations, we think that this is a way that you get to budget. Items.
Does that assume that it's sized properly for the new school?
That the gas line is sized properly for the new school, yes.
So does that one delete geothermal?
That deletes geothermal. Okay, we can circle back to that because I'm guessing that may be a larger discussion. But MEP 2, 3, 4, and 5 are similar to the recommendations on the North End. Simply allowing an alternate controls manufacturer to bid on the project rather than a proprietary spec, eliminate radiant floor heating in kindergarten, and then the elimination of the gaseous fire protection system in the tel data rooms, and the pre-action valve systems.
With the alternate controls, is that just go out and get a low bidder we're looking at, or would someone from the town be able to say, we can live with this and that, so we meet the state's requirements for the biddable? Or would that then, does that then change this? Are we looking at, this is now Jim's Good Controls instead of the 3 top name brands?
There would have to be a conversation with the state still, but you can opening it up to more than just one gives you some competition, so we could list 3. I don't know if that's gonna require necessarily a sole source, but it needs to be a conversation with the state.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that we could receive a sole source, and controls are one kind of a common sole source acceptance at the state. I mean, we can seek a sole source and just not bid it as a sole source.
So that's a great discussion, but what I'm asking is, are we opening it up to the world, or do we have the opportunity to say, these 3 are the ones that we're okay with? And does that then change this number to say, well, we figured it was gonna be the low guy who's.
No.
That still stays valid,
Opens
right?
it up to equal competition.
So Ben's team will be able to say, we like these 3
Yeah,
by X,
yeah.
Y, Z.
That's the premium you pay when you go sole source, basically.
Okay.
We're just not the same.
Just to clear this up, there's 2 preferred vendors for town, not just one. It's ALC and NSTED are the 2 vendors that are requested.
But you have it in the site. We do.
Norton's running on oil now, not natural gas.
I think it's on the surface.
Maybe you should open up that valve.
You found natural gas, that would be helpful. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was we were talking earlier.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah.
The remaining items, 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D are other mechanical, similarly as investigated on the North End, other mechanical systems that represent different degrees of value management. So the recommended, or the MEP 1B keeps the chill beam system, but simply changes the fuel source. And we'll validate.
Okay.
So even with all of the recommendations in green, we would we would still have a delta to budget. So the items that are identified in green, and again, this is, remains to be reconciled, remains to have additional input of additional items from ONG and Arcadis. But that total of recommended value management items is $9,594,760, which would leave a delta to the budget of approximately $1 million, or
1.6%.
1.6%.
We don't have ONG's numbers yet, though.
Well, I'm
Right.
trying to figure this out now. So you gotta take.
Just
you
a
gotta take
suggestion.
The difference from 13 by 5.1, so take 13.
If I were to look at this blind and look at the total for the red items, I would never realize that it's impossible to get to that number.
Oh, because all of, ME,
Because you can't do 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D to get to 60 million.
If you should get that 6.3, that's at the bottom, right?
Yeah, I got 7%, we're like 7.3%.
Yeah, it says delta to budget if selected, best case would be 6.3, right, for the red?
I have
Yeah, but-
7.3.
No, that's saying you're 6
Yeah,
million
you
under.
you can't, the 60 million is wrong.
Why
Yeah,
is
you
it
can't
wrong?
take all of these.
Because you
You
can't.
Because
can't
you
roll
can't
up
do all of
four
them
different
together.
options,
It doesn't.
It does, but it's saying,
It takes,
it's taken off.
it takes 7A only, which is 6 million. And then it takes all the other yellows and all the other reds that are applicable. If it's
okay.
one or the other, then it
Got
takes the red.
Oh, so
Right, the linear.
you're adding the green, the yellow, and the red, the applicable red.
That's
It's
Yeah,
just
it says
7A,
it.
it's just 7A.
See,
It says it right at the bottom,
Yeah,
it
still
says
over.
7A only.
That's what I was thinking.
Still way over.
It looked like it was red only.
It's this
Way
way,
Right.
numbers
not
added
that
in,
one.
right?
No,
Just look at round numbers.
That's right,
That's all red.
Fast.
So now we just added another
So same thing with the yellow,
168,
G2 and BI10 are not added together.
So,
They're exclusive, so they would be.
say that again, I'm sorry, BI2 and
BI10 and G2.
The two space reduction.
why couldn't they? You could take out, if you really wanted to, you could take out the space that was added, the program space that was
So
added.
it's a total of 6,000 square feet.
We added 2 classrooms that weren't in the ed spec, and which is about, with the associated hallway, about 2,000 plus, and then, if you squeeze the building, those would be.
Okay.
I mean, maybe the only.
Should be red.
Yeah, again, this is a draft on, these are the numbers, we need your feedback as to what,
But that's okay, I got that number saying that should be 13.5.
Take it from this. You have enough information?
So we will be getting ONG's budget at the next meeting.
MEP 1B needs to be, MEP 1B needs a deeper dive.
I got
MEP 1B needs a deeper dive,
7.1%
correct?
over.
I was at
yeah, I don't, yeah, it does, yeah, definitely, absolutely. That delta would be, well, we'd have to find where it is, we were told, so. In north, for 3,900 linear feet, it was like, I think that's 750. So it wouldn't be that far. But we'll shake that out and reconcile.
Sort of, and that goes across private property farm. Who's the closest natural gas, but, I mean, if you flip that to oil,
You could.
right?
There is an option, and I don't know if Craig wanted to explain it.
Yeah.
If you're feeling up to it,
Craig's
So-
maintaining his distance.
7.1.
Well, I've been waiting for my opportunity.
Okay.
But thank you. MEP 7D,
7.1% moreover.
So does that when we start?
Uses air to water heat pumps in lieu of geothermal. The technology is ever emerging, it's changing daily.
And then you had it.
The thing you gotta be careful about that system is if it's really cold, it may not work. So you have to provide a backup boiler plant when it's really cold outside. But with that in mind, the temperatures in our area below 10 degrees is less than 200 hours per year.
Because you came down.
And it's never a consistent 200 hours straight, it's intermittent. These units will work down to 0 degrees, so you still get a buffer, but if it gets colder than 0, it may not work, it may not have heat. So that's why the backup plant, you can do it electric, or you can put gas. Now, with something like this, a small plant, that's where propane becomes an option, because you can put a couple 1,000-gallon tanks out there, bury them, whatever, and only use it when you need it. But you still get the benefit of using an all-electric approach. You get a good COP when it's warmer. When it gets colder, it's not sufficient. But this would replace your air-cooled chiller, which you need to make for chill water anyway. And it also provides you hot water to heat your building for 90% of the time of the year. So that's the alternative to going geothermal, bringing another fuel source in, et cetera. That's definitely a good option. And it still couples up with this interior building approach with no issue.
So are you looking for like initial feedback on the list? Is that what
Yeah.
we're gonna do?
We're not we're not asking anybody to vote on anything right now.
My initial feedback is, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's the same as the other site, I think it's a no-brainer. You know, I don't like any idea of reducing the square footage, so, I mean, that should be read in my opinion. And really, they're reducing the floor height by 8 inches. I just wanna see what that, I mean, I feel like that is significant, I guess. It just feels like it shrinks it a lot more than 8 inches, you know, like it gets tight on it. So, I mean, I'm not crazy about that.
Can I interject on the 8-inch a little bit? It's a good thing if we stay with chill beam. One thing about chill beam, you're running piping to transport your energy, and your ductwork is only delivering ventilation air, so you don't need as big a cavity in which to run your distribution. So that 13'4" still allows a good opportunity to run, to give you heights and things you need. And since you don't need the depth in the classrooms, you can keep your ceiling up, and to feed your beams, you can run up and run through the steel to get out to your perimeter, still keep nice heights and not really lose the effect of that. That 8 inches gets lost in the building, just from personal experience in the type of system we're looking at. If we go to a traditional type system, we're using all VAV ducted, I may agree with you because the ductwork's a lot bigger. And I always use the analogy, you can move as much energy through a 1-inch pipe as you do through an 18x18 duct. So with chill beams, a lot of 1-inch pipe versus that 18x18, just to give you graphical representation.
But reducing it 8 inches is you're still losing 8 inches. It's not like we're changing the system where one system I have a tall ceiling and I have all this ductwork sticking down and I'm gonna be at the same finished ceiling height. My ceiling height is actually coming up or down 8 inches if you remove it there, correct?
Well, I just heard our engineer say that we can keep our ceiling heights at what we would normally put at, which is typically 10 feet, 9'4", 10 feet, which is ample for a 850 square foot space. So in theory, you wouldn't even perceive the floor to floor change if we didn't have to sacrifice ceiling height.
So if you could do that here, why couldn't we do it at the north end?
You could.
So we have another green line credit coming to the north end.
You could. Yeah, I think it's worth investigating, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if the delta and the finished height didn't change, then, I mean, I think that's fine. But if,
Yeah, the user experience remains the same.
yeah, if it's the same,
Because you're just collapsing the cavity that wouldn't have been seen.
Yeah, we wouldn't be, ideally, we wouldn't be shrinking the program space in volume. I let us just vet this a little bit more with our engineers to make sure that we can, if we can confidently say that the ceiling heights would remain, then we'll provide that information to you.
But if I may, Deb, but traditionally, your classrooms are 10 feet, your corridors maybe down to 9.
Yeah.
Right, because that's where you're gonna run all your distribution, but your classrooms where you want to have that higher space, and you can selectively do things elsewhere to give you different looks.
Yeah, corridors are typically lower anyway, because there's less space in it, right? Not as wide as a classroom.
But we can look at that for the north end then.
Yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't put it on there.
In my limited experience, I tend to find that people that sit in your seat don't like to mess with height at all. It's the last tooth that you're pulling to change height of anything, to reduce height of anything. So it makes me wonder, are we at the point where we need to find something and we have no choice but to go to this last resort item of height? Because I've seen it be really contentious for an inch.
Yeah,
Right?
For sure.
You don't like to lose those inches, and we're giving away 8 inches here. It just seems.
I think, there's a reason why this type of system is used in existing buildings too, because to Craig's point, we're dealing with 12-foot floor to deck heights. I think let us just go space by space, look at it, and if we can confidently say that we're not gonna make sacrifices, then we'll commit to that at the next meeting. I just wanna have a little bit of time to do diligence to make sure. But you're right.
I mean, to be
once.
You're right on this one. Sorry.
You can qualify it all you want, but.
I'll rewind.
The only thing that I would mention, Chris, is that there are other things that are in here that are kind of the break glass in case of emergency, and those are the ones that we don't necessarily want to touch yet, which are the program reductions and that type of stuff.
Got a general question on Norton. At one point, we looked at the front property and we were squaring off where we kind of jut in there.
Yep.
Maybe that's a question for, is that gone now or what's going on there? And what does that change to the cost? Sean?
I don't know, Sean's able to answer that.
Yeah, I can't really answer in great detail other than to say that it's not, it's still on the table. As something where the council is evaluating based on feedback from the architects and the engineers, their civil engineering.
So what our due diligence is, just to provide a little more clarity, is so we're looking at the separation distances between the entrance drives, what that means from a jurisdictional approval perspective, and if that would impact us. So if we could understand that a little better, I think that would help us understand if, I guess, the order of magnitude, the value of looking at additional property. So that's kind of where we're at. We just want to look at some of the technical aspects of it.
Just, that just brings up a question for me. On both schools, there were areas of acreage that were and were not, and may or may not be like this piece here. And those would introduce additional scope of work for demolition and site work and stuff. Is that in here? I mean, even if it's only you've got some items in here that are only what, $40,000. There was a $20,000 I saw. So if that amount is significant enough to be in here, is that something that's already accounted for, or is that something that will, if we're under by the skin of our teeth, that'll throw us over?
What are you referring to? Like in the
Existing structures that might end
Like
up being
demolition.
bulldozed.
So I
Was
fairly
any of that
confident.
brought into, was any of that
Was
estimated?
north end the house? You're talking about the house?
Yes.
Yes, it's in our estimate at north end. And then, yeah, you keep buying extra property and want to touch it, yeah, it adds costs.
That's one word. Okay. And that's in there. Okay, good.
Okay, anything else on Norton on the value management preliminaries? What is the next item? $7,000 for additional borings on the north end property. And I guess, what is this and where does the money come from?
So this is for additional borings for the North End School.
They've done some borings already, is that correct?
They have, I'm not sure if they've been out there yet to do the borings.
They have, both sites are done. We contractually, we have 8 to 10 borings and 8 to 10 test pits for each site. That was a question that was asked at one of the meetings. So both have been completed. There's a 2-page summary, and then they're still working on their full reports, and I believe, a week away or 2 weeks away for both reports.
We're expecting the reports back for the borings for Norton next week and North End the following week. And based upon the work that has already been done for the borings, and like Jeff said, we have another 2 days or 1 day of test pits on each site. But based upon the borings that have already been done and the geotech's review of soil mapping, he feels, in his words, very confident that we're not gonna find any different conditions than what we've already found out there.
And what are the additional borings for?
So the ones that have been done are the borings that they go down 25, 35, 45 feet, really for the building foundations. And the additional ones are test pits with a backhoe that go down 8, 10 feet that are done for stormwater and pavement.
I'll jump in here. So part of the discussion is part of the global project team. I think there is concern, and maybe you guys can speak to this a little bit better. You would rather see more information on the subsurface conditions than what the geotechnical engineer is recommending.
So when the geotech engineer laid out their borings, Tecton circulated it to us and said, what do you think of the locations? And we looked at them and we felt that additional borings and locations where the building footprint is would be beneficial to the project, so that we had more due diligence and we had a better profile on the overall site. So we recommended that additional borings be performed. We got that proposal from their geotech engineer, which is $7,000.
So where was the mistake?
There's no mistake.
There's the geotechnical borings that the design team is doing is basically for the building to come up with the.
No, it's building and site. As I explained, 8 to 10 borings, 8 to 10 test pits for the site. That's, the design team laid it out, the borings, and we're waiting on the test pits until we finalize the locations of the parking. As Will, the site civil engineer, explained, we feel that's adequate. The folks that are responsible to build it think the owner could lessen their risk with more information. And that's what was asked of us, and that's what I asked the geotech engineer to price, and that's what's before you.
So was the first set on the grid?
No, it was, so we took the preliminary site plan of the location of the building and parking, and we tried to optimize our placement of the locations. So it wasn't on a grid, it was more focused on where we thought the building would be, so they're accurate to what we think we need them.
So if I could paraphrase at least my understanding of what you just said, the design team said, this is what we feel we need. But that's still, in their opinion, you might run into something that is unexpected, wasn't, and so to minimize the risk, you say, of a change order later on in construction because there's a condition we did not see. That's what this is. So it's not like there was something necessary that wasn't included in the contract or scope. This is a, a belt and suspender, so to speak, if you will. Or they think it's just a better belt.
It's a risk mitigation measure. So the more information, particularly on the site, that you can give. I mean, we'd probably love to do 100, but you do it for a reasonable amount. And I think that's the balance that's presented before you. And they think that more is better for bidders to clarify that.
So we did have our estimating department, the site department, look at the site plan and identify additional locations that they would recommend as a site estimator. Would recommend additional borings, additional information, just to be sure that we don't run into rock or ledge or
You think this is reasonable?
I mean, the cost to do it, in my opinion, yeah, $7,000 versus, giving more information to bidders that feel more confident that they know what they're taking out or putting in.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable kind of value analysis.
If we're not doing geothermal at Norton, does that mean you don't need to do more test holes there?
So geothermal,
Or is this separate from that?
this is a different
the whole
kind
building.
of test well.
Gotcha.
This is more for like, foundations and parking, make sure it's
Right.
stable.
I'm a civil structural guy. I mean, 7,000 for borings is
Well, should
Well,
approve.
I don't care if it's $1. It's the point that we are now at the point where we're, at some point, we can't wait till it's a $2 million change order before we ask questions. And I'm just saying,
I mean, 7,000 can save you a whole lot more than that.
that's what I'm just trying to understand, to make sure that this is
Cheap
real
insurance at this
valuable.
point.
Yeah.
The rock is always waiting
So
where you don't look for it.
That's true.
Right.
I didn't, the explanations helped me,
Good, yeah.
so I was unclear on, I thought it was just like, well, he said 10, now it needs to be 20. And
This
it always should have been 20.
This is just for the north end. We haven't seen a proposal for Norton, and I know that, that was also requested to get more information on Norton. So, when we get that proposal, we can bring it to the committee for presentation.
So 7,000 is more holes at the north end.
More holes for the north end.
But we also recommended the same additional number at Norton.
That's correct, yeah. Whether it's the
It'll be
same
another
value.
7,000.
Yes,
It's very likely that it'll be the same.
It's very likely it's the same thing, yes. Or close to it. This would be paid out of contingency. And I think that when we also set the budget for Tecton's line item, I think we put some additional dollars in there anyway, so we might not have to tap into the contingency at this point.
We do have a line item also for testing and inspections in each of the buildings.
Yeah.
I think it was 190,000 or something like that.
So do you need board approval, or it's more just informational from us?
Oh, we do need approval.
Yeah.
We need.
Just above and beyond. We
Okay.
need to have, should approve it.
Is there a motion to approve $7,000, okay, for the north end, we'll leave Norton out for now, north end for additional borings? Okay. Second, okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Hold on.
Kim,
Oh.
do you mind?
Discussion?
Do you mind doing Norton, and then if it comes back that yes, we
could say up to 7,000.
yeah, that way we just if he's mobilized, he can just do it.
Okay,
If that's
That would
okay.
be ideal.
yep, okay, change up to 7,000 for
We
each of the two
anticipate,
sites.
right?
Motion, okay, second, all in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous for up to 7,000 for each of the two school sites. Next item, I guess, is Tecton discussion of Board of Ed and Town Council presentations. It's September 7th and September 12th. Or I don't know, Rich, who's handling that?
Well, I put that on the agenda just because I wanted to get a feel while Jeff and Justin and other Jeff are in the same room, in terms of just how much detail we wanted to go into and how much documentation we wanted to be sending, and while Sean's here also. So we've got these two presentations we're taking. We're still, obviously, we've got schematic design approved for one building, not yet for the other, but we should be pretty close. And I guess, the question is, how much detail would we like the architects to go into for these presentations? So maybe just Jeff Solon and Sean, you might want to give us a feel for how much you're looking for.
I think, with respect to the school system, providing, right now we have an approved schematic design for the north end. We have a draft with prospective edits for Norton. And, before it's cast in stone necessarily too far, I think it's good to present the building layout the look, the edits that we've made, and solicit feedback. Jeff D'Onofrio, where we don't need a formal vote approving the at this point in the game, but I think it's just good to get the information there, give them the opportunity to feel it and provide any feedback. My goal would be in about a week in advance of that to send all that info to the board. That allows them a little bit more time to process if we want any meaningful feedback, rather than just hot takes on that night. So,
Is
by
that-
next week.
That's the presentation that we discussed, kind of the focused slide deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
With, I was looking for the focus slide deck for basically concise information for our website, but
Okay.
we would add that. We would have that plus the information on the edits that we just talked about.
Okay.
That's in essence what I was thinking would be valuable for them.
Sean, what about for the town council, about the same thing, or?
Yeah, I was about to say probably the same, and I guess, sort of conveniently, it's about a week after the Board of Ed meeting, is that right? Jeff? I forget what date it is.
It's a Thursday and a Tuesday.
Yeah,
Here's
it's
the
a Thursday
subsequent
and
Tuesday.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, so, it will have been presented before, but similarly, if we could have something in advance, it's probably a pretty similar presentation. I was gonna say the same thing about some of these very trade-offs. I mean, many, if not all of the council members are watching these meetings, but, watching it from afar on YouTube, or even Zoom isn't quite the same as having a packet in front of you as we've been doing and seeing the images and the layout. And I think some of the higher level trade-offs that have been made, not every detail, of course, but I think some of the, we've been talking about the MVP stuff and everything else tonight. I think some of those, and if it's in a position to be presented, for Norton, assuming it will be, like you said, either draft or very close to being finalized on the schematic design by the time of the meeting. So I think the timing is good.
Yeah, I think that the floor plan and most of the exterior should be clear. We may be making, some changes, but they don't necessarily show up on the drawings, what kind of curbs we're gonna have or whatever. The question of the geothermal obviously may be something that becomes a topic of conversation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So no, I think we're on the same page, and I think pretty much the same presentation with small tweaks if necessary. But then mostly the opportunity for them to ask some questions and get up to speed as to where everything is, and the overall budget, which of course is a major concern as we're talking about just making sure we're where we are on track and what trade-offs we've made, which is part of that same conversation we've been having tonight and last week.
But they need to see, some of those numbers, but also that this is just part of the process. We've gotten, some first estimates in, we've made some adjustments, we're moving forward. Justin and Jeff W., is that clear for you guys?
Yeah, I think we can, we'll put together, we already have kind of a summary presentation. We may backfill some of the process stuff just to key everybody into the path that we've traveled the last couple months. We won't be as expository as we are in our working group meetings, but maybe a slide or two to just say where we've been. So we should be able to circulate that by early next week to you guys just for comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Back to you, Greg.
Yep. Anything else from the architects? Your item 7?
What about the fall festival, the presentation for that?
Let's see. I guess under 8, if we start on they have all the presentations there under 8. The first one, 8A, the sustainability fair. I think that's when they're asking for committee members. So it's at the ball and socket facility. I guess Rich can tell you our availability, or how would you want to handle that?
They sent the letter, I don't remember if they forwarded the letter out to everyone or not. But basically, they're doing a sustainability fair and asked us if we wanted to participate. We're still in process, obviously. So, part of the difficulty is, you go to a sustainability fair, we're not 100% certain what's going to be incorporated into the building. So I guess the question is, do we want to participate? We don't have to. We could get back to them saying it's just too early in our process. If we do want to participate, what do we want to put out front in terms of, energy efficiencies and sustainability within the buildings? That's what they're looking for. We've got a lot of other presentations going on. So I guess the question is, does the committee really feel that this is something we want to pursue right now, or is this something that maybe next year's fair might be more appropriate?
At this point, we're trying to reconcile our sustainability and climate efforts with our budget. Very preliminary to talk about what we have and don't have. So they might be a little premature, but
I agree. I don't think it's something we can present it or should this year until we get further along, maybe. There's plenty of opportunities for them to have input in any of the
so I was
other
just about to say.
meetings, even this one.
Okay, so defer till next year.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I'll write back to her. I'll tell her, we're very interested in the future in doing something. We have these other open meetings that are going on throughout September, October, but that we're still in process, and we're just not in a position at this point in time to get into detail about exactly what will and will not be incorporated into each of the buildings. And we'll just send that letter at this point in time. And we have had a couple of conversations with the design team in terms of having some communication with some of the people in the community, chairman of the environment group or sustainability group or whatever, in terms of, where we're at, what's happening, and kind of bringing them a little bit into that process. So it's on our radar, but we're also still dealing with so many issues and questions right now that I think we need to have a better sense of what we can afford to do before we go too far out front.
Okay. So it's fine. We said the Board of Ed Fall Festival, September 9th. Again, is that committee, the architects, or anybody going to be at the Fall Festival?
I planned on being there, but I'm assuming that the architects were going to. Last I had heard, they were splitting off, one person doing AM, one doing PM.
My shift's with Laurel.
Yep, I know, I'm getting pulled in.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this last time. Justin will be there. Our administrative team is there from start to finish. Justin's buying me popcorn or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. So we'll be there.
Are there two separate
Blackie's hot dogs all around.
Yes. Yeah, we have our booth
So,
and they have.
Jeff, they're going to be working through the Cheshire school system.
Adjacent.
Adjacent, okay. And they're going to have some large drawings or whatever to.
We can discuss what the presentation format will be, but again, I think it'll be a lot like we just talked about, sharing with the board that the exterior design, the interior layout, and be available for conversation and feedback.
So one of the
I think that's mainly all people want to take a look at. What is the exterior of the building, and you've got the two pictures of the main floor and the upper floor, and that's it. You put that out there and get people talking, and hopefully they all look and say, "Wow, we love it."
So we we're working on a couple of boards for each site, or a few boards for each site plan, floor plan, some select exterior renderings. So we'll circulate those around in advance, because not only do we need these for the fall festival, but there's gonna be some open
Right.
houses that we wanna make sure that we have continuity of the information that's out there. So once, after Labor Day, that's really, we have a number of public engagement sessions and communication with members of the public. We've listed those in the project work and meeting schedule. They're highlighted in blue. We're still trying to land on some of the open house dates. But we have Fall Festival, community meetings for both the North End and the Norton School, September 20th and 27th respectively.
26 and 27.
26th and 27th, thank you. We have open houses on the 14th, 19th, and 20th of September, as well as the 28th of September. And then we start getting into some coffee talks. I know I said that incorrectly, but October 3rd and 4th. And then we have some virtual Q&As on October 16th and 17th for Norton and North End respectively. Okay, so we're taking the show on the road in a couple weeks.
Won't be our first time.
Okay, very good.
Run the road shows.
Any new business? Any other comments before we adjourn? Dennis?
Question for Rich. How are we doing on schedule?
We covered that before you had come in, so we are a little bit behind on where we laid it out as far as schematic design going into design development. But with the approval tonight of the North End School and still working on the Norton SDs, we'll get back with Tecton and see whether or not there's any time that can be made up as far as the design development.
Thanks. Sorry, Ellen.
Can I ask, Tecton, our next meeting now is September 14th. Is that workable for you, or do you need something sooner than that? Do we need to be looking at setting up a special meeting?
Don't forget, there'll be also a meeting September 7th and that 12th, I guess, right?
Is it
Yeah,
Board
so-
at 7?
Well,
Board of
we
Ed
couldn't, we couldn't meet on
7:30.
Thursday the 7th. We'd have to meet maybe the 6th or something like that. But,
Yeah.
if they really needed it sooner than our regular meeting in the 14th. Because that would be the approval of the Norton School, hopefully.
No, I don't think they'll.
We have plenty to do between now. No, I don't think it's mission critical to schedule a special meeting.
So we're okay to just
I think so.
gives you 3 weeks essentially. And when we meet on the 14th, then we can talk at that time regarding reductions that we're gonna make for the Norton School project, and then approve the schematic design for Norton.
That's a full month after what was on the schedule. So we had August 10th.
Yeah, I guess I don't see, we're at the BOE on the week before and,
You don't see concern meeting the DD date, even though we're getting the approval.
I will have to look at it. I'm not concerned about the design schedule, delivery date. It's overall. I know. Don't worry about yourself. Don't worry about
Keep in mind, that's always an option.
That's good.
This committee has met many times in special session, so if you need that, that is an
You won't
option.
flat.
That's all I get.
So there is one thing, Craig, you had mentioned earlier today about the Eversource. Is that what you were raising your hand about?
Yeah, we have to get that, if we're gonna commit to that program, we have to get the information that Liz sent out signed and returned, so they can get your contract going. You wanna be in the pecking order. If we let it lapse through DD, then you lose out incentive money going down the road. So the longer we wait, the less money you get. So we need to get these filled out and submitted. It needs town signature as well as my signature in order to do this.
Who from the town, is it Sean?
It's Sean.
I don't know who the representative's gonna be,
Town
but
manager?
It's a town project, so Sean
Okay,
Sean does have to sign it.
okay.
that's fine. But Liz sent out all the stuff. I don't know who was being the person that was spearheading that. I talked to Eversort, to Elizabeth today, and we're still good. We've already completed our schematic models. I haven't distributed them yet because waiting for decisions. But I'm already ahead what I need to do for them. Just, I'm in a good position, but we just need to get the formal documentation to them so we don't lose out.
Well, who's gonna make sure that paperwork is taken?
I'll get this over to Sean Kimball tomorrow.
If we gotta fill out, basically, we're gonna need to know the site address, the total square footages, the schedule of design. I'll fill out the UI design targets. And then if Sean signs it, then I'll sign it as the design professional. We get this submitted, this is the first part, then they'll prepare an LOA, letter of agreement after this. And the rest is straightforward from there. If it comes to me to fill the rest of the information. Then either move.
So we're leaving it in your hands then, so move it for
My hand, you say, or Rich's?
Stay together.
Collective.
That was it.
Just another question for.
To make
Justin,
calls,
Jeff.
I need your mobile number. Add your number from the Communicate tab in the Alexa app.
Is that us?
I think so.
Sean, your Zoom card's like talking to us. I don't know what's going on.
Can,
It's talking now.
It stopped now. It was Alexa or something like that.
when do you think we can take a peek at the schematic designs for work?
The packages or the updated renderings and items?
Well, what we're gonna vote on approval. on
Yeah,
the
so
14th.
you mean the schematic design narratives and the drawing sets? Yeah, those are, they're on the Google Drive now.
Okay. I'll check tomorrow.
They're on a Google Drive that was shared with you tonight, so you have to just go through your drive.
You got, okay, so you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at them.
Okay.
They're definitely.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Any other comments or new business or motion to adjourn? Dennis? Adjourn, second? Second, yeah. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, consider us adjourned.